One thing that you'll find in the AWS world, whether you're talking certification or real world, is that AWS is all about the concepts, not so much about configuration steps, and rightly so. If you know the concepts, you can kind of figure your way around just about anything, versus configuration steps change all the time. I look back at AWS stuff I recorded just 2 years ago, and it looks totally different because the interface is constantly changing and evolving. Nonetheless, seeing the configuration of IAM, I have found, goes a long way towards understanding how the concepts really tie together. So that's what I'm going to do here. Give you a walkthrough on what it looks like to create users, groups, roles, and policies. So we will be living in the AWS Management Console and primarily this identity and access management area. You know you've got some work to do when you come in here and they're like, security alert, security alert, security alert, essentially violating every security policy that we recommend just because we haven't really done anything yet with this account. So first thing I want you to catch is over on the left hand side is where we're going to do most our configuration. There's our groups, users, roles. Right here, IAM users sign in link. So you have one master account. Mine is Jeremy Char right here, and I can go to aws.amazon.com, that URL, and sign in with that root level account to manage this. All of the users that I create need to use this link to sign in. It's kind of a custom link for my account. And you can see that's pretty nasty, right? So I can customize that and say, I want to create an alias that's a little less hairy than this 828943, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know why this popped into my head. Anyone seen The Lion King where it's like, Mustafa? Ooh. I'm going to type that in. That's going to be my account alias. And as long as there's no one else using Mustafa, and I don't even know if I'm spelling that Mustafa. I would say 2 F's, right? Mustafa. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see it immediately changes my sign-in link, so I can say mustafa.signinAWS is going to be the URL that I can give to my users and allow them to sign in. But I don't have any of those yet, so let's configure them. So come over to the users, and I can create a new user, or as many as I want, by typing this in. Currently, I think they limit you to 5,000 users. Essentially, AWS saying we don't want you to use this as your user database for whatever website you're hosting. This is for management purposes, but we'll still give you a lot of accounts in case you have things you want to do. So, you know, whatever you want to do here, right? Jay Chara, CBT Nuggets guy, you know, Fred, create your users. And notice right here, do you want to create the access key for each user? Now remember, this is if you want to use these accounts for API access, meaning you're using applications that are going to access the AWS application programming interface. That's API, right? API, just say API so much for granted, which is essentially your programmatic way into AWS. So if you've got maybe a file transfer client that's going to put stuff in your S3 buckets, or maybe a Route 53, I'm just saying it right here, management client that's going to manage your DNS records, well, those programs are going to interface directly with the AWS API. And so if you want to use one of these accounts to do it, bam, there it is. You got all of the key IDs and the secret key IDs that are available for those. So essentially now you can grant these users, and essentially that's kind of using this user account like a service account, right? I'm getting into the concepts. If you want, you can click on download credentials, and it will give this to you in a CSV, which you can open with, I don't know why it just opened that in WordPad. Usually you're going to go at that thing with Excel. Why did it use WordPad? It's weird. So I'm actually gonna just rename that and put a text file extension at the end of it. Credentials.csv. Double click that. Just feels better seeing it that way. So that's where you can get all of your access key IDs in a nice Excel table format, right? So that's now ready. You can click on close, and now my 3 user accounts sign up. Now this is where you can have a little fun. You can click on any one of these users, and notice you can add them to a groups, you can attach user policies, or you can add alternate security credentials. See, when you create this guy by default, he can only get that programmatic access through the API, right? Now let's talk a little bit about that. When we generated this thing, it said, here's your keys. That will be the only time it gives you the keys to where you can actually see what the secret key ID is. Meaning, if let's say you give those keys to the user, or you lose that Excel spreadsheet that I just showed you, they're gone. But thankfully, that's usually not a big deal, because we can come in here and say, I want to add another access key, Right there. There's your new access key. Now, again, this is the one time it's going to show you that secret access key, right? Notice if I click on close, it's like, hey, you didn't download that in a CSV file. Are you sure? I'll say, yeah, because essentially I'll never see it again. Now, you can only have 2 sets of access IDs per user account. If I try to add another, it's like, sorry, 2 per user. But you can see that if I want to, I can say, you know what? I just want to delete that one. It's gone. Now, whatever programs or embedding you have done with that access key, you have to go manually change. But you can now generate a new one if you want to for this user account. So you can just create these keys all day long. You can even say, well, let's make that one temporarily inactive. I think it may have been compromised, but I don't want to delete it yet. Let's see if you know, making it inactive breaks anything in our AWS or our applications or anything like that. And you can reactivate it once you're sure that it's secure, or you can delete it and again generate another one. Now, again, you can create these user accounts, and they have, I memean, look at this guy. We've got CBT Nuggets guy. He's got nothing. Right? He is an empty shell of a user. He cannot authenticate in any way to AWS. So you need to give him something, whether it would be the access keys, which we just totally invalidated because I don't know what the secret key ID is, or you can do signing certificates. This is where you generate your own signing certificate using whatever, you know, what is that, like X509, what's the standard? That you create your own certificate, you paste it in here, and then there's certain things like you can have HTTP query calls or something where essentially you can provide your own private key for this user or signature, and you'll never send the private key, but some signature that authenticates it using certificate-based security. So that's another way. Or, ever heard of a username and password? So you can do that too. You can come up here and say, you know what, CBT guy has, you know, you can either auto-generate it, and it does that same kind of thing where it says, hey, this is going to be his password. I should show you this. Hang on. Close. When you click on Manage Password, let's just replace it right here. Notice that you can require that user to create a new password when they sign in. So if you don't really want to know what their password is, you can do that. And they sign in with whatever generated password you want, and they can change it, and it becomes their own after that. We'll just go in here and make this guy password P@SSW0D. P@SSW0 already. Okay. Hit apply on that. So now I've got that password. So now this guy, using, again, that URL that we saw at the very beginning, Mustafa, he can now sign in and manage whatever he has access to, which right now is absolutely nothing because we haven't assigned any permissions. That'll come in just a second. But notice the last thing down here, multi-factor authentication device. This is where you set up MFA. Right? So you can click on this and either use a key, like a physical key that you have purchased, like Gemalto makes a bunch of those. There's other key vendors there. Or what most people do, because it's so easy, is use this virtual MFA device. What that is you go to your iPhone or Android and download an application. You can see here's our list of compatible applications. You can see download an application like Google Authenticator. Notice that's the most common and the most widely supported by all these different phones except for Windows. They got to be different. Yeah, we've got just Authenticator. Why? Because we spit on Google. But everybody else is like, hey, and by the way, this isn't the de facto end all for all the applications, right? There are other authentication applications. This is just like, hey, this is what AWS knows about and we support. And I'll show you how easy it is, right? So drop back here. You hit the next step. It says, hey, here's your MFA application for scanning the QR code. Now, hang on, let me grab my video camera. All right, this is going to be a little bit weird. So here's my screen. Here's my phone. So I've got my phone. I downloaded Google Authenticator right here. I'm going in there. It says, hey, this is actually a brand new app. I'll hit begin setup. And right there it says scan barcode or manual entry. I don't know. That's probably really small at the bottom. Manual entry. If you're a maniac, you can go ahead and type. Can you imagine being like, all right, we're going to set up your authenticator. Just go ahead and type this in. Yeah, that'd be brutal. So we're going to hit scan the barcode, and it says access the camera. So right there, it's going to come up and go ping. So look at that. We've got now this little one-time password that's come up, 843217, and notice it already says CBT Nuggets guy at Mustafa. oh wait, I gotta type in. It's 843-217. So 843-843-217, because it actually goes through and says, okay, that one's now going to be invalid. Bam, there's your new one-time password. So this thing, you can see that, I don't know if you can see that, this little ticker downer in the lower right corner there, it says that thing's going to be active for 30 seconds. It's counting down, 759-703. So I'm going to type that in, 7597. Oh man, clock's ticking, 70703. And then click on next step. So it's like, bam, that's it. Wasn't that awesome? So it's completely set up multi-factor authentication for this user. And it works. It works. Isn't that amazing? So hang on, I'm going to bring up a totally new web browser. I love Internet Explorer. Every time I open it, it's like, spam, death, MSN.com. Just waste your life away reading all these news stories. So I'm going to come over here. Let's get this Mustafa login, right? And you'll be able to see what it looks like. Let's paste. I just went to a new browser so I don't get any, credential conflicts with the account I'm signed in. So notice it comes up. It's like, hey, your account is Mustafa. What's your username? Because it recognized that whole custom URL thing I'm doing. So I'm going to do CBT Nuggets guy. That's his username, right? CBT Nuggets guy. Yep. And then my password, P@SSW0RD. Notice, bam, I have an MFA token. So now, oh, my phone turned off in power save mode. It says, oh, hang on, it's on the last little 5-second mark of the code. It's going to generate a new one, and the new one is 574976. And this whole deal is synchronized, right? It's multi-factor authentication. That thing's good for 30 seconds. Sign in. Well, anticlimactic. It worked, but notice I marked this guy as having to change his password so I can type in the old password, but you get the idea. And actually, I don't even think this guy's going to be able to sign in because I haven't given him permissions. But that is setting up multi-factor authentication. Okay, so what about permissions, right? So we can go in and create a user policy, and I showed this back in the concepts, where I can say, for this individual user, I want to assign him this level of access or policy. We went through this in the concepts nugget that I showed how to generate policies, or you can create a custom policy that is just blank, and you go in and type your bracket, parenthesis, do the whole JSON code that you want to do, and assign him permissions, or you can assign him to a group. So I can come over here to the group. So let's transition now into our group discussion. I can create a new group, and we can just say this is my EC2 users, right? Next step. Nope. No space. And then from there, what permissions do you want to assign to this group? So I can come down here and I can say, well, let's give these guys, access to the reports. Well, let's just add that one policy for now. We'll add some more policies, right? So there's our EC2 user. You can see that I've got the one policy for the EC2 report access. Let's add another policy, and we can do some EC2, let's do read-only access, right? And you can just keep attaching policies down to the bottom of this group. Now, there's really no limit to the number of policies. I think right now they limit you to 10K. So essentially, when you're looking at this policy, you can only let this thing run for 10 kilobytes, which is a lot. I mean, this right there, you're probably looking at, think of a character as a byte, right? So maybe you've got 100 characters, maybe 50 characters there, right? So you can have 10,000 characters attached to the policy, just giving you kind of a level view. So you can go in and add whatever policies you want. And I'm just using the pre-built ones. You can go through and do that policy generator, and again, go through and assign whatever specific actions or options that you want in here, and generate whatever policies you want to add on to this group, right? Then you can either from the user itself or from the group add the users to the group. You can say CBT Nuggets guy is added to that group, and now he will have whatever access I want based on the permissions I've assigned to the group. All right, now before we go any further, I want to go back because I know I'm going to forget to show you this if I don't. Now notice, hey, doesn't this make you feel good seeing these little green checkboxes? It's like, oh, I want to like complete the whole set. Well, let's do one more thing of that, and that is the password policy. Wasn't really something I talked about in the concepts, but it's worth mentioning, and that is this guy right here. You can have a password enforcement policy for you. I mean, we just created a CBT user guy. We're like, yeah, go ahead and you know, generate whatever password you want, right? That's dangerous because you just allowed your sub-administrators or even your users full reign. You know, they're like, I want the password CAT, C-A-T. And they can do that unless you go in there and set up a password policy. So you can say, okay, you know, this is, everybody has seen a password policy at some point in your life saying, hey, you know, I want to, you know, require an alphanumeric. I want to have their policy be 60 characters in length, and I want to make sure this thing expires every 2 days. Right? Take that, users. And then from there on out, it's now going to enforce that password policy for every user that you create. Now let's talk roles. The roles, if you remember from the concepts nugget, allow you to essentially create this jacket-like system to where you can put on and put off roles to gain permissions. A couple of reasons you might want to do that is maybe you have your user account that you say, okay, I want him to have access to the EC2 management role, but I want to be able to take that away. Or maybe you have external providers, like you're paying a company to manage your EC2 machines or to monitor them with CloudWatch, and you just want to give them CloudWatch access, but you don't want to create a user account for them, because if you do that, then who knows who they could give that user account to, right? Or you forget about that user account. I mean, there's all kinds of creepy things. So creating a role, you can see when you go in here, you can name the role, essentially has two major phases. So let's just say, let's use their suggested name, my role, right? And I'll click next step. This is going to say, what kind of role is this? So if I were to think about a role, so here's our role, right? I think of this first section of from and to, right? So this first set of permissions that I'm going to set up is the from permissions, from. So I'm saying this is going to come from an EC2 instance. So remember what I was talking about in the concepts nugget. I said I can say this EC2 instance has access to these machines. So that way I don't have to embed permissions inside of the EC2 instance, relying on metadata and rotating the keys and all that kind of stuff. I can just apply this role to the EC2 instance, and now I say that server has this level of power to these other AWS services, which is awesome. Because then I can say, oh, well, you know, I've terminated that instance. Now it doesn't have access. Or I can put kind of sub authentication methods within that instance. Like again, let's say I've got, you know, Netflix that says, okay, you authenticate to this server right here, right? Because you're a Netflix subscriber. Then that server has access to maybe this set of movies, which you know, if you have that server, then you gain this set of movies. So that way, I'm never saying this user account has access to these resources back there. I have this kind of broker in between by granting those permissions to the EC2 role. Again, I'm getting into concepts. They're so easy to fall into, but this is the from. So I'm saying to this EC2 instance, or to, you know, and now notice, EC2 is saying this allows the EC2 instance to call AWS services on your behalf. So that says, okay, that's going to give me, if I say, okay, yeah, that's the role, then it's going to say, okay, what do you want to grant that EC2 access to? Notice, look at all this stuff, right? All this stuff that I can say that EC2 instance has access to, or I can say, you know what, no, not EC2. What about Elastic Transcoder? I'm spitting. Elastic Transcoder. It says call S3 and SNS. So the Elastic Transcoder service, you can see AWS is like, that dude has no business, you know, messing around with Route 53, for example, or EC2 instances. It's just S3 and SNS. So when I click on select for that, notice it doesn't even allow me to select the two permissions, right? Whereas EC2, it went through and said, okay, you saw it just a second ago, right? Now it's just like, here's your policy, right? Because only this Elastic Transcoder only has the ability to go to S3 and list the buckets. In this case, it's saying I can put or get. So they're giving you the option to get into this JSON code and tweak what this role this elastic transcoder role has access to, right? So this is the role. So this is one thing. Or I can say this role has some cross account access. So you can say my other AWS sub accounts, because you can associate accounts with your kind of master account here, other AWS account. And if so, then you can just say, okay, the account ID is this, and you put in your account deal and require multi-factor authentication if you want to do that. Or you can say, there's another account. Maybe I have, this is that example I gave earlier of having a third-party partner that monitors my account. So if you do that, you put in their account number, blah, 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 and then they will give you an external ID. So on their side, they generate kind of this internal code called an external ID, and we say, this, and they have to provide both of those things and MFA if you want to do that too, in order to access your account. Or you can use a role for identity provider. You see how seeing the configuration of this can kind of enhance what you know. So notice you can have this thing like integrated with Facebook. Like somebody authenticates with their Facebook account and they can get into your EC2 instance. Kind of creepy, but possible, right? You can go through and say, I want to allow this web identity provider of such and such, and you set whatever Facebook application ID you would want to do to then establish that trust relationship and have these permissions. And you can go in and create, again, we did the from in this case was the Facebook identity to, and then we set whatever permissions we want to using the policy generator. So that is what we can do with a role, and I leave that nice and vague to where you can see you can grant access to just about anything from anything, but these are the big buckets that the role pulls from. Awesome. You have now seen what it looks like to configure users with their many different forms of authentication, even multi-factor authentication, groups, roles, and the policies associated with them. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.